Chapter 1 The Savior and the Sinner. The chill in the air bit at him, a familiar companion in his long, solitary hunts. He'd dedicated weeks, maybe months to this particular pursuit, pouring every ounce of his meticulous resources into tracking her. Now, past his patience, a virtue honed through countless such vigils, was about to be rewarded. She emerged from the bar, flanked by two hulking figures, the bouncer, a mountain of muscle he recognized, and the scrawny bartender. The establishment had shuttered hours ago, yet he'd remained, a phantom presence in his idling van, knowing she was still inside. He'd been right. From his vantage point, shrouded by the heavily tinted windows of his van, he watched the trio stumble across the deserted parking lot, their movements loose with the telltale unsteadiness of heavy intoxication. He hunched lower, not daring to risk even a fleeting glimpse of his silhouette. They weaved their way towards a small, white sports car, its pristine paint a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness. She was a vision, undeniably the most exquisite specimen he had ever tracked. Her long, blonde hair, a silken cascade, flowed and bounced as she draped herself over her companions. Her eyes, bright and sparkling even in the dim light, seemed to catch and amplify the moonlight, enhancing features already sculpted with unsettling perfection. She was clad in full leather, not the provocative kind, but a cowgirl ensemble, its rustic charm somehow amplifying her raw allure. The delicate lacing of her vest, once cinched to accentuate her breast, had begun to loosen, hinting at the wild abandon of the night. As she shucked off her cowboy boots, tight leather pants rode down, revealing a tattoo on her lower back. From this distance, its design remained a mystery, but it didn't matter. He knew, with an almost religious certainty, that she was the one. Headlights of the sports car sliced through the inky blackness, carving a path as they pulled away. His seasoned hunter's instinct screamed patience, follow, but from a distance. They turned right onto the long, desolate stretch of road, the taillights of the sports car shrinking into the night. He waited, then cranked the ignition of his van, a low rumble echoing in the stillness. No headlights yet. He shot out of the parking lot, a predator unchained. The red glow of the sports car's taillights receded into the distance, swift and sure. He was confident their inebriated minds hadn't registered his presence. Headlights on, he gave chase, the worn engine of his van groaning in protest as he pressed it to its limits. He cranked the volume of the religious music playing on his cassette deck, the hymns of salvation filling the cab. Yet the old engine's whine still pierced through. He mouthed the sacred words, a silent prayer of grim devotion. It was nearing 4 a.m. The road was a long ribbon of asphalt, devoid of other souls. He thanked God for the timed red lights. He watched the sports car ahead screech to a halt, the sudden braking giving him precious seconds to close the gap without drawing suspicion. As he approached the stopped vehicle, he lowered the volume of his music and held his breath, the air thick with anticipation. The sports car roared, tires spitting a cloud of smoke as it launched forward. The road was a tunnel of darkness, flanked on both sides by deep ditches and ancient trees whose branches clawed at the night sky. Then, in a sickening lurch, the car veered sharply left, plunging into the ditch. The momentum of its speed became a violent slingshot, launching it up the opposite side of the road and directly into an unyielding trunk of a massive tree. The impact was a grotesque symphony of tearing metal and shattering glass. The entire front of the car was a mangled ruin, smoke coiling from the decimated engine like a dying breath. He drove up slowly, rolling down his window, the frigid night air biting at his face as he surveyed the carnage. As his van drew alongside the crumpled wreck, the back door of the white car sprung open with a morbid sigh. And there she was, his beautiful prey. She tumbled onto the leaf-strewn ground, a broken doll. A ragged cough tore from her throat, her face a mask of crimson. The sticky, visceral fluid seemed to coalesce around her mouth, a horrifying rictus. Her gaze, wide and unfocused, lifted to his van. She saw him. He hadn't accounted for this. Her eyes, still wide with shock, fixed on his long, red van, its tinted windows mirroring the darkness around them. He stared back, his face a stony canvas of emotionless intent. She saw his short white beard, a stark contrast to the black baseball cap that crowned his head. His dark brown eyes, unblinking, bore into her. Even from the distance that separated them, she could see the glowing cherry of the lit cigarette clamped between his lips, flaring brighter with each deep inhale. "Please, help!" The plea, raw and desperate, ripped from her throat as she struggled to rise. She stumbled toward the van, a broken marionette. "You have to! My friends are hurt! Really bad!" She tripped, scrambling on all fours up the muddy incline of the ditch toward him. "Here we go," he whispered, a grim benediction as he flicked his cigarette from his lips and pushed open the driver's side door. He moved with a sudden, unnerving stride, bypassing the crawling woman. She glanced back, her confusion a fleeting flicker in her bloodied eyes. He reached the front of the car, peering into the shattered windshield. He had never witnessed such a deluge of blood in such a confined space. Without even attempting to open the doors, he knew the two men in the front seats were dead. He pulled at the silver chain around his neck, a small crucifix emerging into the dim light. He brought it to his lips, a silent, chilling kiss. Then his eyes, dark and unwavering, were drawn back to her. She lay there, a crumpled heap on the ground, leaves clinging to her exposed skin like morbid confetti. He walked slowly toward her, his right hand slipping into his jacket pocket. "Please, you have to help, sir. Are my friends all right?" Her voice was a fragile whisper of a plea as he approached. She noticed his right hand, still buried in his pocket, making a subtle screwing motion. He remained silent, his gaze fixed on hers, an unbroken, unsettling stare. Mere feet from her, his hand erupted from his pocket. Just before the viscous liquid flew, she caught a glimpse of the glass jar. Her skin ignited, every nerve ending screaming, a lit fuse burning across her face. Before the searing liquid could melt her nostrils shut, the putrid smell of her own flesh, sizzling and dissolving, filled her senses. As she shrieked, clawing frantically at her rapidly mutilating face, her one untouched eye darted wildly, a trapped bird. The screams abruptly ceased as something heavy struck the base of her neck. The night descended into an eerie silence, broken only by the sickening sizzle of melting flesh on his victim's face. He wiped the corrosive liquid away from her mouth, a perverse act of mercy, allowing her to breathe, to truly savor the agony. As she lay on her stomach, a shuddering mess, he stretched her tight leather pants down, revealing the small of her back. He compared the tattoo there to a photograph he held in his hand. Thank God, he had been right. There had been fleeting moments of doubt, moments when he'd question if it was truly the one. But the tattoo, a stark, undeniable symbol, confirmed it. In all his abductions, he had yet to be wrong, but the chilling fear of it, that gnawing uncertainty, had always haunted him. He returned to the van, leaving the driver's side door ajar so the hymnal music could drift from the speakers as he dragged her limp form to the back and loaded her in. He then fitted an oxygen mask over her face and bound her tightly, meticulously, like a precious, fragile cargo. After making a U-turn, he headed toward the interstate, bracing himself for a long, silent drive. 2 days melted into the rearview mirror. She remained sedated in the back of the van, a silent, still passenger. Nutrients flowed into her through a feeding tube and an IV, much like the rest of his collection, his precious cargo. The radio, no longer broadcasting hymns, was tuned to the news, a constant stream of information, road closures, and, more importantly, any whispers of his latest masterpiece. Finally, as he passed through the desolate expanse of Utah, he heard it, a report from his most recent hunt. And in other news, the FBI has reported yet another missing persons case, which may be linked to the ongoing series of abductions across the United States. Oregon State Police responded to reports of a crashed vehicle early Tuesday morning. The driver and his passenger were said to be dead upon arrival. Seatbelts weren't found on either person. Responding officer Dylan Harper reported that the scene was the most disturbing he had yet to witness in his 20-plus years as an officer. In an attempt to identify the other body, police investigated Campbell's place of employment. He listened intently, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. He took the first exit, pulling the van into a convenience store parking lot, cranking the volume higher. The owner of the bar who employed Campbell supplied video footage of Campbell and his co-worker Marcus Davis leaving the establishment intoxicated. Video footage also showed a woman accompanying them to Campbell's vehicle. He leaned closer to the speaker, holding his breath, a single, agonizing pause. The woman was not found at the scene of the crash. While investigating the area of the wreck, wide tire tracks were said to be found on the side of the road. Leaves had been disturbed in a trail leading towards the tire tracks, as if a body had been dragged. After further review of the parking lot footage from the bar that night, police identified the suspicious activity of a maroon Ford Aerostar van. Damn it! The curse tore from his throat, his fist slamming against the dashboard. The FBI suspects that the van has been linked to a series of disappearances around the country. A license plate number has been taken from the footage and the FBI agency continues to investigate. The woman's identity is unknown at this time. Please contact your local authorities if you see a woman matching the following description. Fuck! He repeatedly struck the dashboard, a furious, desperate tattoo. He ended his fit of rage by aggressively hitting the tape button on his stereo. Gospel music, a stark counterpoint to his fury, began to fill the cab, an attempt to pray his tantrum away. As he focused on the hymns, a faint stirring from the back of the van caught his attention. The removed seats had created a cavernous space for his unconscious victims. The music, it seemed, was rousing her. The sedative was wearing off. He sprang to the back of the vehicle, a sudden blur of motion. He replaced her IV bag, his fingers stroking her hair until her struggles ceased, her body once again falling limp. He gazed down at her once beautiful face, now a grotesque landscape of melted flesh. The remnants of her nose whistled faintly as her unconscious body fought for breath. From the now permanently sealed left eye, a viscous green pus had begun to seep, a horrifying parody of tears. Blisters, angry and weeping, spread across her face, staining the dark blue pillowcase, adorned with a crucifix pattern. I'm sorry, Samantha. If you can hear me, if you're still in there, please know that I'm sorry. A single tear, hot and saline, traced a path down his cheek. He kissed her forehead, then meticulously tended to her ravaged body. He had added antibiotics to her IV, a desperate attempt to ward off infection. He carefully peeled her face from the pillow, the dried pus having adhered to the fabric. He flipped the pillow over, gently resting her head back on the clean side. He moved with the tenderness of a father tending to his gravely ill child. He glanced at his dwindling supply of medicine, a gnawing anxiety coiling at his gut. He had to hurry. Sleeping tonight was not an option. He would have to drive relentlessly to acquire more supplies for Samantha. He couldn't let her die, and time was running out for the others, his collection. They would only remain sedated for another 4 days. He had to move. Now. He fumbled in a toolbox behind the passenger seat. He needed a new license plate, and fast. The radio report had him on edge, a tightening noose. All his painstaking work, all his meticulous planning. He couldn't allow the authorities to catch him now. He retrieved a large flathead screwdriver and climbed back into the driver's seat. As he began to survey the vehicles around him for an unaccompanied car, a series of loud, jarring bangs erupted from the hatch of the van. He startled, his heart leaping into his throat. He spun around, eyes wide, to confirm that Samantha was still lying precisely where he had left her moments before. Bang! 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 The urgent knocking on the far back door came again. Hey, asshole! You in there? A man's deep voice boomed. I'm gonna slash this piece of shit's tires if you don't move it. You've been blocking me for the last... What the fuck? Through the tinted window, he saw a man at the back of his van, peering inside, looking directly at Samantha. He turned the ignition. Panic, a cold, sharp blade in his gut. Slamming the gas pedal to the floor, he rocketed out of the convenience store parking lot. Traffic was thick, A snarling mess, so he veered onto the shoulder, desperate to reach the on-ramp to the interstate, to drive as far and as fast as he possibly could. As he careened toward the on-ramp, a symphony of blaring horns erupted in his wake, a cacophony that was suddenly overwhelmed by a single, piercing shriek. As he barreled through a red light, mere feet from the ramp he so desperately sought, a police siren tore through the night. A sound so loud he felt it in his very soul. He had no choice. He couldn't stop. All he could do was pray and drive. He glanced in his rearview mirror. An air freshener shaped like a black tree was swinging frantically with the violent jerks of his escape attempt. Alongside the tree hung a small Jesus ornament, depicting his beloved Messiah behind the wheel of a race car, the inscription below reading, "Jesus, take the wheel." Never had those words resonated with such desperate truth. He weaved desperately between vehicles, jerking the van violently, a desperate, frantic dance. He hadn't even realized that Samantha was being flung about in the back, hadn't suspected that her IV had been torn from her arm minutes before. He hadn't known the sedative was easing its grip. He didn't know she was right behind him, not until he glanced in the rearview mirror one more time and saw her mutilated face, her single, remaining green eye staring back at him. He saw her reach around quick as a viper and gouged his right eye from behind. Her nails seemed to lengthen, sharper, as the searing pain penetrated the delicate organ. Blood poured like tears. The pain, a blinding, white-hot agony, had distracted him too much from the road. He remembered the impact, a gut-wrenching slam into the back of a slow-moving Freightliner. He remembered her flying through the windshield, a grotesque, silent projectile. The muffled thwomp of the airbag deploying, the blasting sirens, drawing nearer, ever nearer. He woke to the sterile scent of antiseptic, a hospital bed. His body, a symphony of aches and brokenness, but his one remaining eye registered a glint of steel. Handcuffs binding his wrists to the bed frame. He began to sob, quietly, deeply, not from the physical agony, but from the crushing weight of failure. "Father Gregory, I see you've returned to us." The voice, calm and even, rose from the chair from the far corner of the hospital room. The man who spoke was sharply dressed, his dark hair slicked back, his face clean-shaven. He walked to Gregory's side. "My name is Agent Blake with the FBI, and you, sir," he patted Gregory's shoulder, a gesture devoid of warmth, "have a world of explaining to do."